Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering you are just completely free. No boss forcing you out of bed, no guards at your door, literally no chains holding you back. You have the ultimate modern freedom to choose exactly where you go, what you do, and who you become. And yet, well, here's the paradox. You'll probably wake up at the exact same time anyway. You'll take the same route, check the exact same apps, worry about the same problems, and then collapse into bed only to do the whole shebang all over again. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating and honestly kind of uncomfortable truth: why our seemingly harmless daily habits are secretly limiting our personal growth, trapping us in this crazy cycle of daily stagnation. So it really brings up the central mystery of our modern lives, right? If nobody is actually forcing you to live this way, why do you? We almost always think of limitations as physical barriers, things outside of our control that keep us stuck. But the reality presented in our source material suggests something way more profound. The absolute most powerful prisons, they don't have walls at all. They're built out of our unexamined beliefs, our expectations, and, most importantly, our routines. Basically, we are the architects of our own stagnation. All right, let's get into section 1, the cell without walls. Just think about a little kid for a second. A child is born entirely free of a resume, free of any social status, and completely oblivious to what the world considers unrealistic. They just explore, they fall down, they imagine things without any boundaries whatsoever. But slowly, they start learning what the world expects from them. And brick by brick, expectation by expectation, these invisible bars get built right around their imagination. And that brings us to the definition of the invisible prison. It's a self-imposed cage constructed not of physical walls, but of unexamined beliefs, routines, and internalized expectations. The human mind is wild because of how deeply it internalizes societal rules. At first, it's an external voice telling you, hey, you can't do that. But eventually, that voice moves inside, and you just start telling yourself, I can't. Society doesn't even have to physically stop you anymore, because you stop yourself before you even start. Moving on to section 2, how habits trap us. So this is where we really see why our daily behaviors are the secret architects of our own limitations. We tend to think of our habits as just things we do to get through the day, right? But they're actually defining the absolute boundaries of our personal growth. It's the autopilot of routine. You wake up, reach for the phone, open an app, eat, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. You probably didn't wake up and consciously decide, hey, I'm going to spend exactly 47 minutes scrolling through the lives of total strangers today, but it just happens. And that lack of conscious choice is super dangerous. When your routine becomes completely invisible to you, your life turns into this accumulation of automatic decisions. A day becomes a week becomes a year, and suddenly, boom, you've lost a whole decade to the hypnotic rhythm of autopilot. Now, what's really fascinating is understanding exactly why we do this to ourselves. Our source provides this incredible insight. Sometimes people prefer a known form of suffering to an unknown form of freedom. Think about it. Your brain absolutely loves to save energy by predicting the future. A familiar routine, even a completely miserable one, requires way less thought and actually feels oddly safe. We cling to the familiar comfort of our bad habits because the alternative, genuine change, brings a ton of uncertainty. We literally trade the possibility of future freedom just to keep the predictable comfort of our current pain. Crazy, right? And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when those habits and experiences harden into who we think we are. It's the prison of the self. Just consider the difference between saying, I failed this time, which is just describing a temporary event, versus saying, I am a failure, which is adopting a permanent identity. The difference seems super small, but it fundamentally limits your growth. When you turn a temporary behavior or some past mistake into your actual identity, your mind immediately goes to work collecting proof to defend that story. You slam the door on your own growth before you even get close to it. Someday. That single word is perhaps the ultimate trap of the future. Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll learn that skill. Someday I'll finally actually live. But here's the truth. Someday is not a date. It is a psychological hiding place. Making our existence conditional on some vague future event totally prevents us from experiencing the present moment. And it's a brilliant, insidious habit, really, because it gives us all the warm, emotional comfort of having good intentions while entirely sparing us the discomfort of having to actually take action right now. Which leads us right into section 3, the guards of approval. Of course, we don't build these invisible prisons entirely by ourselves. We actually hire social guards to keep ourselves locked in. As social creatures, we are totally wired to want to belong. The fear of being rejected is so incredibly powerful that it often makes us betray our own preferences and stunt our own growth just so we can blend in. And to enforce this conformity, we construct what the author calls the imaginary courtroom, right inside our heads. You've got the judge, the jury, the witnesses, but here's the most devastating part. You are both the defendant and the prosecutor. Every single time you consider doing something a bit unconventional, or stepping outside your habit loop, or trying to grow, you stand before this totally non-existent audience. And just out of fear of what they might think, you hand down the verdict yourself. Don't try. And this brings us to a massively relevant modern trap. We are constantly consuming information, comparisons, and outrage on our devices all day long. So the really crucial thing is to pause and ask yourself this exact question. What is my consumption actually training my mind to become? Because unconscious scrolling isn't just a harmless waste of time, it is daily, relentless training. If you constantly consume comparison, you are actively training your mind to be dissatisfied. If you constantly consume distraction, you're training your mind to be incapable of deep focus. Your digital habits are quite literally limiting your capacity for satisfaction. Now let's see how this builds into the prison of the past. There is a massive, life-changing difference between living in the past, which transforms your history into a permanent identity, and simply remembering the past, which treats it as a learned lesson. Fear and past failures, they are excellent teachers, absolutely, but they must never, ever become the permanent decision makers of your future. You can totally carry the lesson of a past mistake without dragging around the heavy chains that come with it. And that brings us to our final section. Section 4. The door is open. So how do we actually break out of this? Well, escaping this self-imposed captivity doesn't mean you have to burn your entire life to the ground overnight. It just requires a philosophical shift in how you view your reality and your daily habits. Thousands of years ago, Plato described this cave where people were chained up, watching shadows on a wall and completely mistaking those shadows for absolute reality. If someone came and told them about the outside world, they would literally fight to defend their cave. And this allegory just perfectly captures how deeply attached we become to our own limitations. We defend our habits and our invisible walls because, well, they're all we know. But as the Stoic philosophers taught us, while we can't control the external world or other people's opinions, we always retain absolute power over our own judgments, our own choices, and our own actions. Distilling all of this down, the source material offers 3 super actionable steps for you to start escaping right now. Step 1. Notice the bars. Just ask yourself what you truly believe you cannot change and why you believe that. Step 2. Observe your automatic life. Seriously, for the next week, just watch yourself without any judgment. When you impulsively reach for your phone, just ask, wait, why? Observation creates this amazing distance from your thoughts. And finally, step 3. Choose again. Because once you actually see those automatic habits for exactly what they are, you reclaim the power to make a conscious, intentional choice. Ultimately, the entire essence of genuine liberation really comes down to this one thought. I can choose what deserves my obedience. True freedom isn't just about impulsive rebellion or doing whatever you feel like in the moment. Honestly, that's just being a slave to your impulses. Real freedom is consciously choosing growth over comfort. It's choosing courage over avoidance, and it's choosing truth over the approval of that imaginary courtroom in your head. Which leaves us with one final lingering thought for you to take away today. You are not trapped. You really aren't. You might just be inexperienced, or a little afraid, or maybe you're just listening to a voice that was never yours to begin with. The person you think you are is only the person you have practiced being through your daily habits. The real prison only begins the moment you stop questioning the walls around you. So, the ultimate question to ask yourself today isn't, how do I escape? It's, what if the door is already open?